Morning, folks. Pour yourself up a cup of coffee and have a seat. I've got a real gem of absurdity to share with you today. A few weeks back I posted a video called Rand Paul's Toilet, and at the end of that particular video I tried unsuccessfully to flush an Ayn Rand book down the john. That book was entitled The Voice of Reason, Essays in Objectivist Thought. Some of you may recall that particular clip. Just can't flush it away. There you go. Rand Paul's right. Toilets in my house aren't working. Just can't flush that shit away. It's a collection of essays that Ayn Rand published either in newspapers or in her objectivist newsletter back in the 60s and 70s. Well, true confession time, okay? I bought that book at a secondhand store and I only wanted it as a prop for the video, but since I paid money for it I figured, well, I ought to go ahead and read it. So I took the cover off that book and put it on a different book. That's what went in the toilet. And I saved Ayn Rand's book, and for the last few weeks I've been trying to delve into the mind of Ayn Rand. And it's slow going, because man, this is some painful shit to read. Ayn Rand considered herself to be a rationalist, and she disparaged faith, for example, the idea of religion, because of its irrational nature, and I'm inclined to agree with her on that. But here's the deal. Even though Ayn Rand considers herself to be a rationalist, she is just as much a dogmatic fundamentalist and as devout in her own particular brand of faith as any dark-suited dunker off the steppes of Kansas. Now, her faith isn't in God, but in the magic of the laissez-faire capitalism that she espouses. To give you an example, I'm going to read a little passage. This is about the Apollo project, and she lauds the technological achievement of the moon mission, and she praises the fact that this is probably one of the best uses of tax dollars that we could ever ask for. But she does go on to criticize the fact that this was done with public money, with tax money, with money that was taken by dint of force from the taxpayer. And that's, you know, one of her essential premises is that taxation is theft, if you're familiar with Randian thought. And here's what she says in one little piece. She says, "It is said that without the unlimited resources of the government, such an enormous project would not have been undertaken. No, it would not have been at this time. But it would have been when the economy was ready for it. There is a precedent for this situation. The first transcontinental railroad of the United States was built by order of the government on government subsidies. It was hailed as a great achievement, which in some respects it was, but it caused economic dislocations and political evils, for the consequences of which we are paying to this day in many forms." So in other words, she says that the Apollo project would have been undertaken by private means eventually, but the only evidence of this that she can provide is a precedent that isn't even applicable. She says, well, there was the Transcontinental Railroad, which was also a huge undertaking, and it was undertaken with government funds. But it would have happened. It would have happened. Trust me, it would have happened. I've never seen it before. I've never seen a project of this magnitude undertaken by private enterprise. It's always been by government. But I just know that it would happen. Give it time. You know what I call that? I call that faith. Because she has no objective means to explain how that's going to happen. She doesn't have any precedent to point to. She only has her belief that it is that way. And of course, what would any fundamentalist be without hellfire and brimstone? And Ayn Rand has her own hellfire and brimstone, but in her case she calls it welfare statism or collectivism or altruism, which of course is part and parcel of socialism and the real hell, communism. And I'll read a little passage of that. The destroyer, the thing that's destroying America. This is in 1961, I think, when she wrote this. The destroyer is the morality of altruism. Altruism holds that man has no right to exist for his own sake, that service to others is the only moral justification of his existence, and that self-sacrifice is his highest moral duty. The political expression of altruism is collectivism, or statism, which holds that man's life and work belong to the state, to society, to the group, the gang, the race, the nation, and that the state may dispose of him in any way it pleases for the sake of whatever it deems to be its own tribal collective good. Well, you know, we all have to give something to the society that we live in, and it's just a fact of life. She goes on to say, she blows this way out of proportion. For me to give a portion of my income, or for me to contribute something to either the family unit, the state, you know, that helps to nurture or protect me, that's not evil. That's just the way it is. But she goes on, she blows it out of proportion, and she says, you may observe the practical results of altruism and statism all around us in today's world, such as the slave labor camps of Soviet Russia, where 21 million political prisoners work on the construction of government projects and die of plant malnutrition, human life being cheaper than food, and so on. No, I'm sorry, but that is not altruism, that is not statism, that is despotism, that is tyranny. You got to get your terms right, Miss Rand. But that's just to lay the groundwork for her mindset. Here is the real gem of absurdity that I found in here. This is on an essay called The Question of Scholarships. And the question she's addressing is it morally proper to accept scholarships, private or public? And is it morally proper for an advocate of capitalism to accept a government research grant or a government job? So her basic premise is that taxation is theft, and if you are participating in a government project, if you accept employment from the government, if you accept a grant or a scholarship from the government, you've got to know that that money was taken from people by force. Okay, so here's the thing. The question is it morally acceptable? And her answer is this: the recipient of a public scholarship is morally justified only so long as he regards it as restitution and opposes all forms of welfare statism. Those who advocate public scholarships have no right to them. Those who oppose them have. If this sounds like a paradox, the fault lies in the moral contradiction of welfare statism, not in its victims. Since there is no such thing as the right of some men to vote away the rights of others, and no such thing as the right of government to seize the property of some men for unearned benefit of others, the advocates and supporters of the welfare state are morally guilty of robbing their opponents, and the fact that robbery is legalized makes it morally worse, not better. The victims do not have to add self-inflicted martyrdom to the injury done to them by others. They do not have to let the looters profit doubly by letting them distribute the money exclusively to the parasites who clamored for it. Whenever the welfare state laws offer them some small restitution, the victim should take it. So, It's immoral. The act itself is immoral, but that immorality can be excused if you believe the right thing. Sounds kind of like another doctrine I know where, well, you're evil. You're inherently evil. You're sinful. But you can be excused if you believe in this particular dogma. Sounds kind of Christian, doesn't it? And then, not only that, it has all the same bombastic moralism of, one of those hypocritical religious types. The line drawing thing. What I do is moral, what you do is not. And hey, guess what? While I was putting this video together, I ran across a little story about Ayn Rand accepting Medicare and Social Security payments when she was sick with lung cancer. Is it true or not? Well, I don't know. You can check it out for yourself. See the link below.